This is the HaltingWinter Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Winterhalter. We're continuing our series. This is part 2 on the game of life. What game are we playing and how do we play it better? Tune into the last podcast. Go listen to that one and check out kind of as we did kind of an overview of what is this game of life. Remember, again, I've been chewing on Alex Hormozy's podcast, The Game, and talking about the game of business. And if we can kind of emotionally detach ourselves from so much identity in what we do and just play the game, we'll have more enjoyment and we'll probably have more success. And I think that is the case in all of life. We don't just want to invest that way in our business, in our professional life. I think even in personal life, like if you want to experience the life you want to live, then you got to see it as a game. For instance, think about this. Like, what if you approached dating? What if, let's say you want to get married and you want to have kids. And so you need to think about, instead of just going, well, who's around me and who's giving me attention and I'll just kind of mosey on into this thing. What if you got really intentional? What if you strategize? Now, this is where we want to be careful because you don't want to get so game-minded that everything becomes a competition and you don't have real ownership, right? We're talking about people's lives, your life, other people's lives, because we live in a relational world. And so, yeah, it doesn't want to be so emotionally detached. That's an unhealthy game where we just want to win at all costs. That's unhealthy. What we do want to see, though, is how do we strategize? If we really want to live an intentionality, with intentionality, an intentional life, then we need to strategize. That's the whole reality of a game. If you want to win a game, you better have a plan, and your plan better be better than the other people around you. And so, back to the point, if you want to date, if you want to get married, you don't just want to be like, well, kind of haphazardly walking into that. You want to, right? Okay, well, what kind of person do you want to date? What kind of person do you want to marry? What are some of the values? What are some of the, and guess what? You're going to have to go find possible matches. And that means you're going to have to do two things. And this is the difference between seeing it as a game and just taking it as it is. Someone who takes it as it is, just kind of, right, they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of, what will, always the what ifs. What happens if, what if I, and they get probably too emotionally attached. So they don't ask the right questions. They might go in with, this would be nice and this would be nice, but then they get attention and they're in a relationship. And how many people do you know this? They get into a relationship and they know it's not the right one. They know that this wouldn't be the person they're married, that they should marry, but they end up in these long-term relationships and then end up even getting married. And it's like, why? Well, because there's comfort. Because there was some other thing that it gave you that you said yes to instead of saying no, so that you could be with the actual thing that would make the most sense. Dating, we live in 2023, all the dating apps, and you could be swiping and feel like rejected. And it's not even people are rejecting you. You're just swiping, but it's just like, and then you go on dates and you get ghosted or you don't get called back, and I'm never going to go again. I was rejected. Like, that's called life, right? It's the same thing in sales. You'll never be good at sales if you can't handle rejection. You never be good at sales if you don't handle objections. You never be good at sales if you don't get the reps. And that's not a reflection of you in some derogatory, like everyone's going to have failure. In fact, if you really want to be successful, you will rack up failure. I mean, think about it. Think about how many, I'll just use some numbers. This week, I will have sent out hundreds of emails, if not thousands, to business owners who I'm connecting with. I want to see if I can help. Want to see if I can be of service. Want to see what are the obstacles, what are the challenges, what are they experiencing, what have they learned, what are they reading, what are they chewing on, right? I want to learn. I want to help. But guess what? I will send out, that's what's crazy. I will send out hundreds of emails just wanting to help. And what's crazy is I know the statistics that most business owners have stress, are struggling in some area in their business. Most are not growing. They are treading water, trying to survive. And yet, hardly any I will send, probably out of 1,000 emails I send, I might get 15 to 20 that even reply. And out of those 15 to 20, I might get one or two that would actually get on a phone call. I'll probably get one or two that would actually, I'll probably get, out of 1,000, I'll probably get 5 that say they'll schedule a phone call and probably 1 that will do it, maybe 2. I just don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but I don't get it in light of logic. I do get it in light of, right, we don't want to be sold. We don't believe because we're always sold. We're always, who can really help? Who can, there's all kinds of things that get in our head. But if I took that and said, well, man, no one wants help, so I'm just going to close up shop. I mean, that's why small businesses close. We expect people just come to us because we're awesome. Just because you have a good product doesn't mean anyone should come buy from you. Like, we have all these assumptions, and we have very positive assumptions about ourselves and very negative assumptions about other people. And so we are set up to play this game wrong. We're set up to fail at this game because we're so emotionally attached, whether it's to dating, whether it's to our businesses, whether it's to our career trajectory. We're set up to have too much emotional attachment, which will then really sabotage our ability to play the game well. Hard to play the game and win if you are. It's one thing to be emotionally invested with passion and purpose. It's another to have your identity involved, like your worth. Because every time you experience failure, you'll attribute that to worth. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that with dating. Every time someone doesn't hit you back, message you back, every time you swipe on someone to go, oh, I'd be a match, but you're not getting any swipes back, do you take that as, oh, I must not be attractive, I must not? It just reps. But again, here's opportunities for you to feel bad about yourself, for you to take that personally, for you now to attribute worth to something that's really, you don't even really know the metrics. You don't know. Maybe your profile's broken and no one's even seeing it. Maybe all your emails are going to junk mail. People aren't even seeing them. Like, there's so many things that we don't know, but we're assuming, and it's so easy to assume negative things. Much more difficult to assume positive. At least not like real positive instead of pie in the sky positive. Okay. We've been talking about the game. And so I want to give 3 actual, here, let's dive into actual 3 steps. What do we need to do? We're going to take 3 steps so we can play the game of life. The first step we need to do is we need to assess. We need to assess by asking ourselves some questions. And there are a lot of questions to ask. I'm thinking about maybe creating a little course, maybe creating a little questionnaire to help people, but we'll see if there's any interest. You can hit me up and say, I'd be interested in that. Here's some questions. What do you love about life? Let's just start with, here's a big question to ask yourself. What do you love about life? What do you love about yourself? And I don't mean some like, I love my, like, what do you love about physically? Like, what do you love? How do I say this in a way? I'm not trying to get you to boast about yourself. I'm trying to get you to think about what you love about the reality of your life. Like, there are physical things, mental things. Like, what do you do for your physical health that you love? What do you do for your mental health that you love? What do you do for your emotional health that you love? What do you do for your spiritual health that you love, that you really enjoy? What are some things that you love about your life right now? Now, before you it's probably going to be easier to think about things that you're frustrated by, things that you hate, things that you dislike. But let's just start with things that we love. What do you love about your life right now? Your life. The things that recharge you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Think about that. What do you love about your life? What do you love about some of your rhythms and routines? Think about your daily routine. Are the things that you love? Things that you really enjoy? Things that really inspire you, help you? When you think about just those awesome days that you have, what about that day happened that was so awesome? What could you write down and go, man, that would be worth repeating? That's what I want to experience. Those elements. See, this is one of the things I think we might live in just the emotional state. We'll go through bad days and good days, but we won't take time to reflect and go, why? What was good about it? And was it just chance? Or are there elements there that I can be intentional about trying to replicate, putting myself in situations where that might be more of my reality? There are things at your work that you love that, man, every time you're like, oh, I got to do this today, it was so fun. Okay. Can you do more of that at your work? Or maybe there's a job in another company, in another business, where you could do more of that. And so more of your days could be like, this is what I was made for. Assess. What about your rhythms? What about your routines? What about your life? What about your relationships? What do you do with your friends? What do you do with your spouse? What do you do with your children? What do you do with the various people in your life? And you go, man, that was so fun. That was so fulfilling. That was so rewarding. And again, not every day can be a magical Disneyland, but I don't even know if Disneyland's that enjoyable. But I just love just getting together with friends and chatting. Sweet. What would happen if you built into your schedule 2 nights a week where you just had people over and you didn't have to make it some big production? You just had people over and chatted around a fire in the summer. And maybe it's just a summer thing you do. Maybe it's a winter thing you do inside. I don't know. I think sometimes we enjoy things and we just let them slip by and hope that they just come back into our lives. Hope that happens again. Why can't you make it a habit and a rhythm? And you don't have to make it every day to be a habit or a rhythm. Maybe a couple times a month. Maybe 1 time a week. Maybe in certain seasons of life. Like this is called playing the game. Setting the rules. In Monopoly, right, there are so many spaces in this square, so many spaces before you make a right turn, and you keep going around the board. And every time you go around you collect $200, right? There's some rhythms happening. Every time I go around the board, if I can get around the board, I know I'm getting $200. It's January, and I'm going to have that one thing. I'm going to do that one thing. That's going to be so fulfilling. And then it's going to be February, and I'm going to look forward to doing it again. How can you put things into your life that are rewarding, that are enjoyable, with some habit so that you're playing the game, so that you can look forward to something, so you can work hard, and then you can enjoy. You can work hard, you can rest, you can write. What are these rhythms? What do we love about life in ourself, in our rhythms, in our routines, in our relationships, in your work? What do you love most about your work? What do you love most about your free time? In your free time, how do you like to recharge? How do you like to rest? How do you like to refresh? Are there hobbies that you used to do that you're like, man, I really enjoyed that. I just don't have time anymore. Really? I'd love to see if I like this. Here's something I'd like to do. Okay. What do we love about life? Question number 2, what are you frustrated with? What frustrates you? What are things that you wish you didn't have to do anymore? What are things that you do not look forward to doing? What are things that when you are in the midst of them, you're like, this is the worst ever? What are those? Have you ever really identified what it is about it? Or is it just, I just don't like my mother-in-law? Well, why? What is it about it? Is it because they dominate every conversation? Is it because they're so hard to have a conversation with? Is it because they're so opinionated and their opinions don't seem to mesh with yours? Like, what is it about the people, the things, the rhythms, the work, what is it? Articulate it. Actually write down what it is so then we can strategize. We can remove ourselves as much as possible from those types of situations, and we can move into more of what we love and enjoy. Play the game. Play the game. What do you love? What are you frustrated by? Here's a good... In light of the life that you've lived up to this point, in light of your life right now, this very moment as you're listening to this podcast, if I gave you a magic wand, if I gave you a magic lamp with a magic genie and said, in 6 months, your life is so radically going to change that every element of your life is going to be, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be dream, fake heaven, but every area of your life, from yourself to your relationships, to your vocation, to your hobbies, the whole of your life is going to be enjoyable. What do you think that life would look like? What about your life right now to that life in 6 months would change to move from what it is now to one where every aspect of your life was more enjoyable than it was negative, than it was frustrating, than it was apathetic? What would it have to do? What could it look like? That is a great exercise. What do you think would need to change in every aspect of your life? Self, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relationships, closest relationships, inner circle relationships, outer circle relationships, co-workers, neighbors. What would have to happen in your personal life and in your professional life to go from where it is now to one where you look forward to waking up and enjoying every part of your day? What would that look like? What would that look like? That is what we assess. That's what we need to assess. We need to do some work. And I think that this is why we kind of get on the hamster wheel and we don't actually change. We don't actually, we don't give ourselves permission. Well, this is just the way it is. These are the cards I was dealt. Not in 2023. Everything can change. There's just no reason for that. There's no reason to live a life of bitterness, of depression, of despair, because you're telling yourself it has to be this way. It doesn't. But that doesn't mean what you want to do is swing the pendulum and blow up your life to try to figure it out. Why not just start assessing things? Why not start looking at the real data so that you can make assessments as to what you can work on, what different choices you can start making, right? It starts with you. You got to get healthy and then see about the other things around you. Because maybe some of the things that you think are unhealthy around you are actually just you reflecting onto them. So start with you. You start to say, I got to get healthy. I got to play the game instead of letting the game play me. I need to figure out what game I'm playing. I got to figure out what's important to me. I got to prioritize the life I want to be living. I'm not going to be told what's important. I'm not going to be told what rules and what guidelines are a part of this game. I'm going to figure out what game I'm playing. And I'm going to figure out the rules and the boundaries. And then I'm going to start playing that game. And I'm going to see how things change around me then. And maybe it's awesome. Or maybe then it's time for step 2, which is now I got to strategize and assess how I might get some new friends, how I might make some new rhythms, how I might get a different job. Now we're at phase 2. But phase 1 is just, let's just assess and start to make some changes here. Internal changes. In the way we think. And now we're going to get to the way we act. And that's what we're going to look at in the next podcast. Today is about assessment. You can't move forward unless you really assess. Do the hard work to assess the real data so that next we can strategize and then we can act. Tune in next time into the HaltingWinter Podcast. Your host, Seth Winterhalter, as we figure out the game of life. Today we assessed. Next time we're going to strategize so that we can act. See you then.